missiles were fired on Masjid and Markaz-e-Taiba in Muridke. Muridke is a location in Pakistan in the Punjab region. And this is the information that we've picked up. These are locations which have housed. Now, remember viewers, Punjab in Pakistan is where Lashkar-e-Toiba Supremo Hafiz Saeed has had his bastions. Muridke, this specific site which was struck, and a masjid and Markaz-e-Taiba in Muridke was struck in that strike. These are locations which have housed the Lashkar chief Hafiz Saeed. Hafiz Saeed is the man who carried out deadly terror attacks in India like 26/11, which will forever be etched in India's memory as a day that India will always remember. He's the man behind it. And also, it has been claimed that he is in a Pakistani jail. Of course, that is something only that can never be confirmed, because that's something that Pakistan has said. This was the location which was struck. And targets would be, we had also mentioned that targets would be Bahawalpur and Muridke and Muzaffarabad. Now, these are locations which have been struck. I'll just give you a quick understanding of the locations where these strikes took place. Muzaffarabad, which is in POK, Muridke, which is in Punjab. I just mentioned shortly before that Punjab is where Hafiz Saeed has had his bastions. That is the region which was targeted, Muridke being the exact location in Punjab in Pakistan. Kotli, which is in POK, Bagh, which is again in POK, Ahmadpura, Sharkia in Bahawalpur, which is again Punjab side in Pakistan, Bahawalpur, Muridke and Muzaffarabad. These were locations which we had mentioned earlier as well. These are some of the locations which have been targeted. I repeat them once again: Muzaffarabad POK, Muridke in Punjab, Kotli POK, Bagh POK, Ahmadpura, Sharkia in Bahawalpur, again Punjab in Pakistan. Those were the locations which were struck as part of Operation Sindoor. And this operation happened somewhere between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. because 1:44 is exactly the time when the Indian Armed Forces released that statement confirming Operation Sindoor, clearly saying that these are strikes which were measured, they were responsible, and they are not designed to be non-escalatory. I once again repeat to viewers, India is not looking for a war. This is exactly what the Indian leadership has made clear, that they will serve justice, and those behind that deadly attack in Pahalgam, they will pay. And that is essentially what India has now done. It has only struck terrorist infrastructure. India gave enough chances to Pakistan to deal with these terrorists. Pakistan refused to even condemn that deadly terror attack in Pahalgam. On the opposite, their Deputy Prime Minister, Ishaq Dar, said this in the Pakistani Senate, that he was essentially batting for the TRF, the resistance front, saying that India has no proof of this, but India has given enough proof. Pakistan refuses to take any action on it, and India now has served justice to all those who were aggrieved, and an entire nation who was in shock for that deadly attack in Pahalgam, which was carried out by a special forces soldier of the Pakistani army, came into India and opened fire, a trained fighter opening fire on unarmed civilians out there in Baisaran Meadows in Pahalgam, only to enjoy a holiday with their families. It's usually referred to as mini Switzerland only because of the beauty of that location, but that is the terror which took place in that location. Shortly after that terror attack, India's Home Minister, India's leadership was in full swing. India's Home Minister was standing in Baisaran Meadows within 24 hours of that attack, and India's Prime Minister, who was in Saudi Arabia at that time on a state visit, cut short that state visit and came right back. This was never going to be something India was going to ignore, and it was clear from the first day and the first minute of that attack when it took place. Now, on the 15th day, India has carried out Operation Sindoor, saying justice is served. I'll cut across to Dharamjot, who's here with me in the newsroom. Dharamjot, it's about 4:20 a.m. We've been tracking all these developments in the wee hours of the night as the world is still waking up to what has happened in the Indian subcontinent. Nothing that India had hidden. India had made it clear, we are going to give a befitting reply. When it's going to come, Pakistan had been guessing all throughout. They said next 3-4 days, next 24 to 36 hours, from their defense minister, from their information minister. They were all guessing. Of course, all their guesses had to be wrong because the Indian armed forces were sure of what they're going to be doing, and they were given operational freedom by the Indian Prime Minister to decide where they want to strike and when they want to strike. And again, these strikes have been non-escalatory. They do not reckon a response from Pakistan because no military infrastructure in Pakistan has been struck.
Well, you're absolutely right, Shivan. As we've been talking about this, it remains to be seen in terms of what other reactions will come out throughout the course of the day. As I've been mentioning again and again, more details by the Indian Armed Forces will be shared later in the day. They will share more information with respect to what happened in the entire operation, how is it that they carried out, the exact timing, the locations. All of that we're waiting for to hear from the Indian Armed Forces, and that will be in addition to the statement that they've already put out when they put out the tweet and when they said justice has been served. 9 terror locations in Pakistan's Punjab and POK have been struck in response to the April 22nd Pahalgam attack. And we've been talking about this a lot, Shivan. The Indian Armed Forces, I mean, they've been dealing with, and India has been dealing with, the neighbor for a very, very long time. We have over 3,000 kilometers of a border that we share with Pakistan. Over 740 kilometers of that is, the LOC. So a very, very porous border that we've seen the neighbor take undue advantage of time and again when it comes to cross-border terrorism. It's something that India and Indian authorities have been dealing with for such a long time. And we have seen attacks like this before. We saw the ghastly Pulwama attack. We saw the Uri attack. But none of them have ever gone unavenged by the Indian Armed Forces, and a similar reaction is also being seen when about 2 hours ago we saw the statement put out by the Indian Army and then again by the Ministry of Defence, and after that the Government of India also put out an official press notification talking about Operation Sindoor that was carried out as a response to the Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd, Shivan. So clearly a lot of emotions, a lot of reactions that are pouring in. A lot of people will now be waking up, since it's still wee hours of the morning. A lot of people will now be waking up to the news of what has happened. There clearly is going to be, a lot of outpouring of emotion, a lot of reactions that are going to come in. But what we can say about the situation politically, at least right now, Shivan, is the fact that all the reactions that have come in from political parties and their top leadership has been that of unison. We've heard everybody making statements in the same voice. They're all appreciating it. They're all acknowledging that justice has been served by the Indian Armed Forces. It's a stance that the political parties took shortly after the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, when they said that they'll back the Indian government with they stand in complete unison with the Indian government with respect to whatever the leadership thinks is the correct course of action to react to that dastardly attack. And even today, 15 days after we lost 26 innocent civilians, the political parties are still standing united in India when they're talking about how justice has finally been served. Whether or not there's a blowback from this, whether or not there's going to be a different sort of reaction from Pakistan, that is something we will find out through the course of the day. But when it comes to the action of the Indian military, of the Indian Armed Forces, they have made it categorically clear, saying that this is a targeted strike on terror infrastructure. Does that really warrant an escalatory reaction from Pakistan? Logically, it doesn't. Is that going to happen? That remains to be seen. Because the porous border, Shivan, is already tense. We've been seeing it from the past few days. We've been talking to our correspondent as well, who's been telling us how there have been so many violations day in and day out ever since the Pahalgam terror attack. And those violations have only escalated and intensified. So where the situation goes from here, I think the ball is now in Pakistan's court to determine, because India has taken a restrained, a targeted, a precise action to avenge what happened in Pahalgam back on April 22nd.
Right, Dharam. Pakistan had 2 weeks to take some action. Of course, nothing came from the Pakistani side. They even failed to condemn the terror attack in Pahalgam. And here we are at Operation Sindoor on the 15th night, precisely, to say the least. Now, just to quickly bring you an update as far as airspace is concerned in India, all our viewers in India must understand this, that there is going to be some halt of flights on Wednesday. Flight operations will be, there are going to be some disruptions in specific locations. I'll quickly go through them in Srinagar, Jammu, Amritsar, Leh, Chandigarh, Dharamshala and Bikaner. Now, most of these locations are towards the north, but Bikaner, towards in Rajasthan, it is very close to the Punjab side in Pakistan. It is in fact very close to Bahawalpur, which is again one of the locations where Indian Armed Forces carried out strikes as part of Operation Sindoor. Now, Bikaner, the airspace in Bikaner is also impacted. And apart from Srinagar, Jammu, Amritsar, Leh, Chandigarh and Dharamshala, which have been impacted. Not just Indigo Airlines, even Air India has halted some number of flights. This is what we are learning at this point. Air travel is disrupted. Some disruptions are going to be expected. So we're requesting all viewers, anyone traveling today, please check timings, please check the details of your flights before you travel further. Wednesday, today, we are going to be expecting some disruptions across these regions, which I have just mentioned, and that includes Bikaner, which is very close to Bahawalpur in the Punjab side in Pakistan. Now, all right, there are some developments which are also coming in from Jammu and Kashmir. Idris has a new development to share with us. Idris, I'll come to you. There seems to be a certain amount of an aftermath of those strikes, and there are some updates on that you can share with us at this point. Idris Loan from Srinagar, over to you.
Well, yes, Shivin, what we're hearing from the security forces is that one civilian lady has been critically injured in the ceasefire violation that has started in the Poonch sector of Jammu division. As I earlier said, that ceasefire violation by the Pakistani army is happening right now at least 4 to 5 places, 2 in Jammu, while as 3 in the northern part of Kashmir. We are hearing from security forces that one lady has been critically injured in the crossfire that is continuing in the Poonch area. Let me tell you that we've also been told by the locals who live very close to the line of control and the international border that they've been asked to move from the forward areas of the line of control in the northern part of Kashmir, in Kupwara, Baramulla, Handwara. All these places people have been asked to move to safer locations and also shift into the individual bunkers if at all there are present in their locations. While as we've seen that Indian Army confirmed that there was ceasefire violation from the Pakistani army in the Poonch sector, where one lady has been critically injured. She has been shifted to the hospital where her condition is said to be critical in the shelling that has taken place from the Pakistani side. At all the locations, let me tell you that the Indian Army is retaliating and giving a befitting reply. This comes exactly after the Indian Air Forces carried out that attack on the terrorist camps across the line of control. We've also heard from our sources that some of the missiles were basically struck the one of the markas where the Hafiz, which was basically housing Hafiz Saeed at one point of time. We've also seen in the past as well, in the last many years, that there have been multiple terror camps which have been active very close to the line of control, because it's easier for them to basically infiltrate into the Kashmir territory as well as into the Jammu division when they're trained in these terror camps across the border. At the moment, firing going on at multiple locations from both the sides, from the Indian side giving a befitting reply as well to the Pakistani firing that has started at multiple locations. But we are hearing that one lady has been critically injured. She's been shifted to the hospital, and there is possibility that there could be few more injuries in the same region as the firing still continues, Shivan.
Idris, exactly, and this is what you had mentioned to us earlier as well. This is not just regular small arms fire which is taking place across the LOC for this on this 13th night of ceasefire violations. Today we have heard shelling across the border between India and Pakistan. And as Idris mentioned, there are now injuries being reported from India's Poonch district. Now, among other developments, as far as the locations which India has struck as part of Operation Sindoor, I'll go across to Dharamjot. Dharamjot, what have you picked up on these locations, these specific locations which we will have on the map for our viewers very shortly? Some of them are in Punjab and Pakistan, some of them in POK, and that is what India has said as part of Operation Sindoor. What does that reflect? Who exactly was targeted in these locations?
Well, Shivan, from what we're hearing, I mean, in terms of the estimation of the entire attack, we do know that as per the official statement, 9 official terror sites were targeted by the Indian Armed Forces. But what we're also hearing is that the selection of the strikes of these sites was with the intention and with the goal of targeting, the critical infrastructure of Jaish-e-Mohammed and of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. Now, as we've been talking about this since the Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd, the TRF, which first claimed the attack and then backtracked from their statement. They are very popularly known as an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, and it's in fact a baby of these three Pakistani terror organizations that have been banned in India for years now in a row. So what we're now picking up is that these were the key specific sites that the Indian Armed Forces had planned to and has in fact targeted in its strike just of 2 hours ago. As I mentioned before, Shivan, just after the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack, the Indian officials had identified the latest terror launch pads in different parts of Pakistan, and they had pointed and specifically identified close to 42 terror launch pads. Now that is the latest information that they had. Depending on everything that the intelligence agencies could put together, these were the sites that were picked earlier today, the 9 sites that we've been talking about. From the 42 launch pads, the earlier estimation that the Indian Armed Forces had was that there were roughly around 150 to 200 active terrorists across those terror launch pads in parts of Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So clearly the Indian Armed Forces have taken all these factors, all this intelligence information into consideration before planning and striking the 9 sites that we've been talking about since the past 2 hours, Shivan. Clearly, as we've been saying, it's something the Indian Armed Forces have done before. It's something they've done again. We've seen this for years now, Shivan. We've seen cross-border terrorism affecting Jammu and Kashmir, affecting other parts of India for so many years in a row. A lot of rhetoric, a lot of narrative has followed around it, but we've seen so many civilian lives disrupted in the entire process. But after the Pahalgam attack on April 22nd, no matter the tension, no matter the circumstance, we saw thousands of locals stepping out on the streets. Remember, if you remember those visuals, those sights from Jammu and Kashmir, where locals stepped out condemning the attack, wanting justice for it. After hearing the details of what happened, the entire dastardly attack where civilians were killed, innocent tourists were killed, a local Kashmiri pony rider was killed when he was trying to fight a terrorist. So all of that had the valley standing together. It didn't matter to them, whether or not the situation is going to be stable, what is the risk going forward, the escalations that's going to come from India's neighbor. And now, 15 days after that, we've seen the level of military preparedness that Indian Armed Forces have shown today when they attacked those 9 sites. Of course, we are, as Idris told us, seeing some ramifications of that, some pushback of that, and some retaliation from the Pakistani side. So how it turns out to be for the rest of the India, particularly for the Jammu and Kashmir Valley, for the people of the valley, today, later today, in the coming few days, that is something that we will be carefully watching out for, Shivan, because this is, it's a big win for the Indian Armed Forces in terms of the precision strike. But how the neighbors react now is something that we will have to watch out for. Now, because as you rightly mentioned, they had 2 weeks to react in a manner where the two parties could come together, identify, substantiate, and take course correction measures. Instead, they chose to cry foul and deviate the matters in other ways, including going for a meeting to the UNSC. So now that the Indian Armed Forces have carried out a precision strike, how is Pakistan, how is Islamabad going to react? That is something we'll have to wait and watch for, Shivan.